I am not up to my quota. I'm only on page here, let's see, can I even see it? 25 of my guide. So I need to pick up the pace if it's generally going to be around 200 pages, this book. I should have been up to then at least page 50 by the first week of National Novel Writing Month. A major problem with writing is that it takes so much time, which is nice and is a mindful, almost therapeutic process. But I mean, like here, it's Sunday, right? I've got to clean my house, do my laundry, do my dishes, go shopping for the week, and then you keep putting off the writing and then you don't do it. First set of 5's done, which is 5 dishes, 5 things being taken off of this countertop, 5 things being taken off of this table, 5 minutes on the exercise rowing machine, and not 5 pages, try to get 1 more page a piece on the book written. So now I'm up to page 26. Since I'm writing about Schenectady and particularly talking about going past the GE plant, when I was exploring the town, I figured why not incorporate some history. So this is Edison's biography. Over the years, I've tried to read biographies of a lot of the famous, successful industrialists and economic people and bankers in American history. So we got Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan and the whole dynasty, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford. We get the works of Alexander Hamilton when he was Treasury Secretary, his report on manufacturers, etc. Basically coming out with the basis for, the American economy and how it should thrive at a time when it was theoretical rather than accepted. The Rothschilds, a banking family. The Warburgs are a banking family. Robert Moses. I think it's more Rothschilds. Oh, yeah, because this is a 2-parter. I guess I should have those next to each other. Yeah. So all you really got to do is sort of go to the index in one of these old books. I got Schenectady 178 to 179. And, I would annotate my books when I read them because I always thought to myself, hey, at some point in time, I might want to come back and this is actually going to be useful. Let's see. So this one would have been, I must have read this. Wow. I guess I read that kind of quickly I read this biography in, I guess, 11 days back in 2016. Which is also interesting, Edison was really sort of became interested in his whole field from reading Michael Faraday's works on electricity. And this book also mentions Thorstein Veblen, who wrote a book called The Theory of the Leisure Class. So, then after that, I'd like to go read Michael Faraday's works and Thorstein Veblen's works, which I did. Thorstein Veblen was his big idea or sort of innovation in American intellectual observation of their character is the idea of conspicuous consumption. That's Veblen's book right there. That, one of the things that we as Americans love to do, and as capitalists, I guess, is conspicuous consumption. Part of what you do is you make money so that not necessarily you just, thrive on your own, but the whole point is to show other people that you are thriving by spending money conspicuously. So then in terms of my book, here we've got sort of the day that I'm in Schenectady and we're about to explore, and we happen to see the General Electric building, and that's a good segue then to talk about why Schenectady was chosen as the place to build GE. Like, what were the factors that were involved, which I think is kind of fundamentally interesting, you know, from a general reading standpoint. Not necessarily something you want to spend 5 pages on, but a couple of pages I think would be interesting to readers of why Schenectady and not some other place were chosen. I think people like the etymology and little history and the kind of facts that you can kind of, you know, just bring up in general conversation after you learn them. Well, now it's 8 o'clock and I've managed to get 3 pages written. Therein lies the rub with sort of writing. There's so much other stuff to do, but I did manage to so far get my tables clean, my laundry done, and I'm gonna make these nice salmon patties for dinner. But now I can actually sit down and actually start to focus on writing for the night. I hope to get like 7 more pages done, so I have a total of 10 pages today. If I can do 10 pages a day, I mean, then I'll have another 200 pages by the end of the month. It is now 10:45, so that means I've been kind of at this for about 14 hours. On the one hand, I feel like I'm hitting my stride in terms of the writing, and also the fact that now I'm done with all these little 5 side projects, which are good because I write and I do something else and I think about what I'm going to write next. I don't have to sit at the computer and just constantly sit there without anything coming out. On the other hand, it's like getting momentum and stopping, getting momentum and stopping. So now I am going, in order to get motivation, I'm going to clean myself up a little bit and see if I can write for 2 hours straight. So I'm only up to 4 pages today, and I got another 6 pages I'm trying to get done before I go to sleep. It's 12 o'clock, midnight, and I'm on page 31. So I still got like basically 4.5 more pages to go. But I wanted to just bring up something that's kind of funny. Particulars, right? So I was writing about being in Schenectady, going to Mike's famous Frankfurters. They had little hot dogs, blah, 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 blah. So I got thinking about hot dogs and just happened to think about this book that I read once. It's called 10 American Cities, published in 1949. I happened to pick up this book when I was in high school. I used to just walk around at the end of the day after everybody, went home after the academic part of the day was done. But then there was a 5 o'clock bus, so I'd hang around for another like 2.5 hours and just walk around and talk to teachers and whoever the hell was around. And the one day I was going into the library, they were getting rid of all these books in a big cardboard box. And I said, "What are you doing with these books?" The librarian said, "Well, we're getting rid of them." And I could see why. This last book was checked out on December 18th, 1984, right? But the fun thing about these books, right, is that you can sort of, you read a book and you get information, right? But you also get sort of like the way that people were thinking at that time period, right? So I particularly remembered, I drew a little question mark in my book when I read this, and I didn't get around to it till like 2017, but it was about a hot dog, right? So it's talking about Brooklyn as its own city, which is kind of interesting, even though it was incorporated into greater New York in 1898, and this book was written 99 years later. But it talks about, above all else, on Coney Island, you can eat Cracker Jack and cotton candy, hot roasting ears, and knishes are on hand, but everybody's favorite is the Coney Island hot dog. Now, the author does not have confidence that everybody knows what a hot dog is, any more than when I'm writing my book, I necessarily will have confidence that people necessarily know what Utica greens are or a garbage plate is, right? So this is how they describe it. The hot dog, right, in spite of its name, is a wholesome beef and pork sausage enclosed in a roll. So that is a particular, right? That's a very particular thing, a hot dog. You can picture what a hot dog is. Now, in my book, I'm talking about a hot dog. And I'll get into this. I'll do a whole thing on this, just about the necessity for particulars. Think about the difference between these two statements. The family sat down to dinner, they ate their meal, and then they had a conversation, right? Versus the table was set, the smell of the roast had filled the room, when the mother, opened the top of the roasting pan, the steam came off, the carrots and the onions had softened and were at the bottom and all the juices. The father insisted on always using the ladle for the mashed potatoes to make his whole, to have the gravy. The daughter, followed suit, but if the wall of the gravy broke, sending the gravy into her, corn, she would have a breakdown, whatever. Now you got the characters. You've shown a little bit about these different characters through the use of particulars. It always has to be in writing. Show, don't tell. Don't say the daughter would freaked out a lot. That's a great example. She freaks out from something trivial. Blah, 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 blah. And so I got a whole page out of the idea of a hot dog, both because it's a regional thing, but the small hot dogs with the chili are regional. And then this very idea that at one point in time in 1949, hot dogs were not popular. And, they were popular, but they were not ubiquitous. And somebody had to explain them. And that they thought that they were wholesome. I mean, unpack that, right? Who would think that a hot dog is wholesome? It seems unbelievable today. But then you think this is the same generation that argued tooth and nail, a lot of them, they could not believe that tobacco companies, that their CEOs would not have the best interest of consumers in mind, and that tobacco, it must be healthy, right? Or that, gas CEOs don't have the best, interest of the earth in mind. Or that the president of the United States currently doesn't have the best, interest of the average person in mind. You get to then, by using these particulars, sort of unpack this whole character traits of people. I mean, what does that suggest? That suggests a fear of society falling apart if our leaders are not, and by leaders, our political leaders, our business leaders, our religious leaders, right? This is all the same generation. Nowadays, you just take it for granted that, for instance, a priest, having been forced into an unnatural state of involuntary celibacy, might do a lot of perverted acts. But this whole generation, the idea that a single priest would do something like molest a child, was, no, I'm not going to accept that. Right? You start with the particulars, you put a few things together, and then you abstract some of those traits, and then you have something to kind of like discuss and explore as a generality, I guess is the word. So here's hot dogs that lead to a culture of trust in where you're getting your information from, including the means, like the advertising that it comes through, right? And a reluctance to question that because it causes an existential crisis in the person and what they believe about everything on earth, which then leads to Donald Trump being elected. Which means that then you can distill all of that into an archetype, right? And that archetype is someone who does not want to question anything. They just want to live their life without questioning it, right? So now if you want to incorporate that type of character as a character into a story, you can do it using the particulars. You can talk about somebody who smokes cigarettes, eats hot dogs, refuses to go to the doctor, and goes to church on Sunday, and votes Republican. And you've got this particular trait of a person. You don't have to tell what that person's beliefs are. You only have to describe their characters, and the reader will be able to understand what type of person you're talking about based on the behaviors that they're doing, the actions that they're doing, which is how you then show rather than tell what sort of a character you're describing. It's now 2:15, and I have finished. I've gotten up to page 35. That was my goal of the day. Geez, it only took me 17 hours and 15 minutes. That's the thing with writing, right? It's a fundamentally solo activity that requires concentration at the opportunity cost of everything else, right? I mean, in the meantime, you've got to shop, and you've got social obligations, you've got to go to work, you've got to make sure you get enough sleep to go to work tomorrow. And tomorrow I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so that's less than 4 hours. And I just want to say, one thing that annoys me a lot is ChatGPT. People aren't trying to be insulting, but, somebody will say, oh, why don't you just use ChatGPT? You'll just scan everything about the Erie Canal or whatever, and, it'll pop out, 20 pages in a minute. Then you can do something else. I mean, that is existentially destroying me as a writer, or somebody who has a job as a writer. But I will say that the problem is not that ChatGPT is so good. The problem is that it is just good enough to get over the fact that most people have no discernment. No, I don't want to say that. It's good for technical writing, right? But I think that my particular niche as a creative writer is to write something in a way that a computer can never write. A computer does not, and I'm not just saying a computer, I'm saying an algorithm, a piece of software, generative AI, whatever. I mean, frankly, there's music playing right now that sounds like jazz music. And I bet you it is AI, right? It's some name of some band that's all lowercase with dots, and their songs are 1 minute and 26 seconds long. It's amazing that generative AI can look at, or listen to, I guess, and abstract the qualities of what a lo-fi jazz song sounds like and then make a channel out of it. Well, I think that they cannot quite do what a writer does in terms of subtlety and talking about your, like I said before, writing is guided hypnosis because reading is like lucid dreaming. So I just want to give you, I'm proud of the last page of this book, and I kind of want to show you how, generative AI cannot follow a physical plot on a treble clef while having a bass clef as a theme and jump back and forth sort of between them in a way that leaves you thinking because of the juxtaposition between these two ideas that are left sort of like hanging out there, unresolved into how they are connected, so that you, using your mind, make the connection. That's what's fundamentally interesting about reading. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is going to blow your mind, but this is kind of just an example I would feel of how to have a theme. So my friend Michelle and I, over the course of the day, explored Schenectady, the Stockade district. We went to Mike's, Frankfurters from the 1950s. We talked about old art. We talked about the benefit of New Schenectady as an advertising theme for Schenectady. Well, Michelle is like, what's wrong with old Schenectady? Blah, 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 blah. Then it's about midday and we stopped into a local bar that's just like in a residential area at a corner that opens up onto two sides of the street. Inside it was dark. There were two very old men drinking at 12:09 on that Wednesday afternoon. The TV was showing The Price is Right, hosted by Drew Carey. Particulars, right? The bartender was a stocky guy in his 30s who portrayed a skeptical look as we entered. We sat down in the middle of the bar and I ordered a Labatt's or Utica Club or something light. Michelle asked to try a beer I didn't know. I hoped that the bartender would not ask for Michelle's ID because she refuses to carry a driver's license out of principle. She's in her early 30s and as tall as I am, or at least I think she's as tall as I am. I often think that women who I respect are taller than me, and has been a bartender for years herself. Nonetheless, I've gone out with Michelle to my local drinking hole on a busy Friday night, and the bouncer refused to let her in, and I had to go inside and use a favor to get the bartender, who was in the middle of making 7 drinks at the time, to shout to the bouncer and vouch for Michelle on my behalf. I always prefer not to commence an interaction with a stranger owing them for some small favor. It was not a problem on this day, as Michelle immediately struck up a conversation with the bartender about serving. Then, inevitably, one of the old men started talking politely to Michelle, and they fell into a conversation which I knew would last up to an hour. Michelle is eminently approachable. She's pretty, but not curated to the point of looking out of reach or unfriendly. She smiles and she likes to talk. If she engages with you, you have 100% of her attention while you are presently engaged. Once she is out of your presence, she might not respond to a message from you for 6 months. But when she is there and makes you feel listened to and looked at and returns the ball conversationally and empathetically. It is almost impossible not to try to talk to Michelle as a lonely man, and then to try to keep talking to her. Anyhow, I did not feel like talking to old men who did not want to talk to me as a third wheel. And since I also felt no obligation to entertain Michelle, as long as I didn't have to save her from some unpleasantries or obnoxiousness, I took the opportunity to catch up on my notes about the Stockade District and then to look at the black and white framed pictures along the wall. There were a series of pictures spanning several New Year's Eves in the building we were in. In the pictures, every man wore a suit and tie, every woman wore a gown. There were coupe glasses with champagne toasts. The pictures captured the characters of the people in a way that today's pictures do not. Today, if somebody is blinking or looks weird, the person deletes the picture from their phone and takes 10 more in quick succession. In 1956, nobody took a picture. In 1956, if somebody took a picture, people looked like what they looked like as they looked all the time, and you didn't know what the picture turned out like until days or weeks or months later when you developed the film. Funny story, we had a camera going up that was black, about the size of a video cassette, which took film as opposed to being a wind-up camera. Here is how often we used the camera. A roll of film would hold about 30 pictures. My mother took some pictures of me when I went to my prom when I was 16 in junior in high school. I then brought the film to CVS. A couple days later, I picked up the film, and the last few pictures were my prom pictures, and the first picture was of me at 5 years old getting on the school bus on my first day going to kindergarten. So basically, the 11 most socially formative years of my life were recorded over 32 pictures, or less than 3 per year on average. No wonder I became a writer. If I wanted to record my life, I had to do it with a pen and paper. Anyhow, several of the black and white pictures had the same man and woman over several New Year's Eves. The woman's face and facial expression were so similar to my friend Sierra that I took a picture of the picture to show her and see if she had any grandmothers or great aunts that lived in Schenectady. Something about seeing my friend's exact face at the age she is now in a black and white photo from 1956 really made me feel a connection to the people in those pictures. They were human beings who were alive and young. With minor adjustments to their hairstyles and clothing accessories, it could be me and my friends in those pictures, which means that someday I and my friends will be very old and dead. Sadly, it's unlikely that someone will frame our pictures for at least two reasons. First, our pictures are digital, which means no one will ever find them when cleaning out an old closet and choose to put them up as ephemera. And second, this generation that I live in does not attend New Year's Eve parties in suits and gowns where we drink champagne and slow dance. So there's no physical situation where anyone might take a picture of my friends and I like the black and white ones on that wall. I went back to the bar and sat down and tapped my fingers so that Michelle would notice me and talk to me again. I mean, you can unpack that, right? Why am I tapping my fingers at the end? Because now I'm feeling lonely. Because now I want something that doesn't exist anymore. And that requires a connection that doesn't exist anymore, right? So tell me how ChatGPT is going to do that. Tomorrow, I am hoping to do 10 pages in much less than 17 hours. And I think that really, if I'm going to meet my National Novel Writing goal of the month, I've got to figure out some tactics to get more volume writing done over the course of this month. I think it's going to be about 166 pages would be sort of my general estimation of what this book will be. Or the other way to look at it is I'm describing the events over 365 miles. And so far, I am a fourth of the way-ish through the month, and I'm only 15 miles into those 365 miles. So I'll talk to you soon, and next time I want to specifically talk about particulars versus generals and how that makes effective writing. Thanks. Have a good night.